And within that, to come to our specific sound sequence this morning. Within that paradigm is the toning, is the coding that life is a task. And so when we are in the habitual conditioned mind, when we are in that filter, running our energy, our consciousness through that filter, which then means we are not conscious. We, ourselves, who we are, is not conscious and aware of itself. We are running our self, our energy, our consciousness through the filter, and thereby living through that taken on habitual character, like an avatar in a video game. So we are experiencing ourselves through an image, through our mind, instead of as ourselves. And so what it takes on is a quality, a flavor that we get up in the morning and we have a to-do list, and life is a task. And everything on that list, even those things that actually we're doing because we want to do them, because we want to do something for ourselves, because we want to experience, have a certain experience. It is something that we are attracted to. So it is something like special we want to do for ourselves. And yet it creates anxiety. It creates pressure. Like, for example, let's say um, preparing for a party. That would be such an example. Or preparing for a trip. So a trip or a party, these are all things that they're special, and we are preparing to have a special experience. And the egoic mind can take it and will take it. It will, and this is what we want to explain. It will take it and make it into a task. And the reason why we will say this again now, um, for the record, the reason why oftentimes when you speak to people, afterwards or even while you're speaking to them, you don't feel relaxed, and afterwards, um, you find yourself rehashing, rehashing parts of that conversation over and over and over. Okay, when that happens, yeah, let's go to that example later. Now let's stay with the conversation. When that happens, we left energy there. Something is not resolved. Why does that happen with certain interactions that we rehash them and go over and over and over? Because in that conversation, we experienced a greater amount of duality, a greater percentage of ourselves in this, where we have split energy. Because when we have conversations with, excuse me, with people, and then of course with certain people, with some people it's more than with others, but especially also those that we know for a long time, we we have the tendency to slip into the habitual mind more, and the habitual, when we say habitual mind, conditioned mind, egoic mind, this is a mind that is based on the character. This is so on the image of yourself, and you are not coming from your presence. You're not coming from your pure presence. Yes. And so if when you are alone, you are already running more currents that you have liberated out of the that have become conscious, that have woken up, liberated out of that image, out of that dream, out of that filter of being unconscious in that filter. And this is the awakening. So when you then step into an interaction with someone that then where you fall into taking on, running your fall, the awakened do not fall asleep, but um, it's like your attention goes back into the um, assuming that role, assuming the character, a certain persona, a certain way of being, because that's the habit. It's like it falls into a track. And if that holds, and that will hold more duality, it will hold a greater split than when you are alone, for example, and you are more in already in the awareness and the awakened consciousness of your soul. And that means at the same time you are present. That is your presence. So oftentimes it is when you speak with others that you assume the role, that you have certain opinions. For example, when you excuse me, entertain opinions, you take a stance, you entertain opinions about others, about situations, and then you take a stance. And that already is, when that is not, when there is no backdrop of awareness of having taken a stance, or that that is your stance, but there is no back door open into the soul where it's like, at the same time, I don't have a stance. It's like, yes, I prefer, in the dream, in the moving parts, and on the stage, I take this role, I take this stance, but it's not closed. It's not who I am. Who I am is this presence that is watching, or that is aware of the stance that I'm taking. But the stance that I'm taking is, it's like, yeah, that's the color I'm wearing. That's the the pattern I'm wearing, and that's the my hair color. That's what my voice sounds like. That's um, like the culture I come from. That those are my imprints and all of this. So yes, this is my preference. This is the stance I'm taking, but it's not who I am. And so I don't have to defend it. I don't have a need to defend it. I assume it, but I consciously am aware that I'm assuming this. So when this awareness isn't there, and we slip back into assuming a stance and a position and an opinion and so forth, and we are in that exchange, um, then we are running the currents through more duality, through more of a split from ourselves. And that is what creates this anxiety. And that is why you then later, when you're alone, you go back and repeat, because you're trying to merge yourself again. You're trying to bring the split energy back into one flow, back into harmony. But when you are not aware that what is going on, of what is going on. Then it is just going to be another habit of the mind of going back and going through the conversation, and then it is going to be fortifying. It will fortify the stance that you took, that position, because it will continue to run the currents through the same um, channels. But what we want to do, of course, is we do not want to fortify and keep the egoic mind fed and strong. We don't want to keep ourselves there. We want to liberate ourselves from it. We want to awaken from it. And that's the prison, that's the prison that will keep us in that endless loop. Yeah. And so what we're trying to do is and this is what the egoic mind does. It assumes the role of the soul. It will hijack everything. It will pretend it is everything, because that's its program. That's what it does. It will pretend it is the soul, but of course that cannot be. And that is what is also called the spiritual ego. And you can say it's another gatekeeper plan of the egoic mind, of that program. Or you can call it a trap. But it's always so simple to know the difference. Because the truth is never in the image. It's never in the story, never in the thought. It's just always the presence that is here. And as soon as you realize that, you take your energy back. And from this place of presence, which is also a place of always the present, it's not identified. It's not experiencing itself through an image. And it is a place of pure forgiveness, understanding, compassion, knowing. And it has no desire to go back and assume its energy, liberate its energy. Because as you are here, aware of yourself, of your true self, all your energy is here. Even when there are still held in the mind and respectively in the body programs, and the currents are still running, in the reverse or in the more of a split off from the soul current. And you can feel that in the body. But the soul knows that is me too. And we feel it because these are the two currents coming together. So it is the natural current of the soul, the light, and then the density, which is in resistance to that current. And we feel the resistance when we are aware of self. We feel all the resistance to self. And that is based in that split from self, egoic programming of the mind, conditioned mind. Always to come back to this truth and to feel it in the body. So there is nothing to fix or to, that's the refortification of the egoic mind, is to, oh, I wasn't good enough in that conversation. How can I fix that? What can I write maybe or say and add to the conversation in order to rectify it, in order to bring my who I was and what I represented and what I said, bring that back into harmony with my truth. Nothing you can say will do that. It is assuming your true self. It is coming back to this presence. And it is blessing and allowing what was to be. And if, of course, if there is something that then wishes to be said from this place, that can absolutely happen. But the the merging of the energies does not come again from the merging of the energies can only come from stepping out of the illusion into the truth. So as long as I am trying to fix it from within the egoic mindset, it will never be right. It will never be good enough. It cannot, because coming from that, it will always come from a degree of separation. And as we are waking up more and more to ourselves, we become more and more sensitive to small degrees of separation, to small currents that are running through the egoic mind, through an image of ourselves. And it doesn't feel right anymore. It's like, oh, it bugs me, there's like a pain there also. And then of course that's within that program, we're trying to fix it because we were not good enough. Otherwise we would feel good about ourselves. And this was the joke this morning, that the unraveling egoic mind doesn't feel good about itself, and it fortifies itself by taking on the soul, the a soul identity as if that were a stance, which actually it is outside of a stance, you know. It makes it into an image, creates another prison. That's all it can do. I mean, that's just how the program works. And it's almost hard to go there now. Always have to let it go again and then let it come back. What was the humor? Don't be eager to deliver. Presence is the gold. Thank you. That is that anxiety of the egoic mind as well, wanting to perform, wanting to deliver. That is also the spiritual ego running. You don't want to have too many silent gaps in your video. We understand. But that's what it is about. To always drop back into silence and letting everything go. Always dropping back into the 0 point. Especially when there's a lot of commotion and noise, like chaotic energy around you. You have to let everything go and drop back in. Because you need to make space for it. More space than you're currently holding. So that's why. It's your nervous system asking you to make space. And then often in the silence, out of the silence of your mind, you may hear the feel and hear, not maybe actually hear, but like in the imagination, hearing light language surface. Because light language does exactly that. Your light language, speaking it, makes space in your nervous system and it quiets the mind. It refractals. Yes, fractalizes. Yes. So the message this morning was very clear, is very clear, to point out to you that you are slipping back into a pattern of making life a task. And that is the egoic mind really taking over again, the conditioned mind in its habitual ways. That even the planning of a party or the planning of a trip is becoming a burden and creating stress. And what is being repeated in your mind is the part of the journey when you are planning a trip. That in the past you are, remember, always created a lot of stress, and that was the traveling part. And because you are wary, you are anxious about stepping into a situation that will cause your body stress. So a full day of traveling. And perhaps the night before you also didn't sleep well. Because you remember, your cells remember occurrences when it was a true onslaught onto your nervous system. And so you're already afraid of that. You're already projecting that anxiety onto the trip and into the future. And that means that you're constantly, and this is what we pointed out to you, constantly what you're imagining is the most taxing part of the journey, the journey of going somewhere and then having a very different experience. This also comes from it comes from the same habit of mind. When you are daydreaming about yourself being somewhere else, you're projecting yourself into a potential future scenario where you are somewhere having a good time in a different location, in a different setting. And you are doing that because this moment is boring, maybe this moment isn't good enough, and it is like a desire to have a better moment, and so you project yourself into a future moment. This is different from inspiration. This is different from when it's different from inspiration, and it's also different from when we are, for example, doing a guided meditation where we imagine, you know, this. Okay, what is the difference there? That's a big topic actually, but let's go to the core of it. First, we have to quiet down the field again. Yeah, the difference is it coming from a core belief of this moment isn't good enough, and then that is I am not good enough, and it is coming from the program of the egoic mind, um, promising a better future, that you will be happier in the future, but you always take your here and now with you. You always take yourself with you into that setting, and so the setting really cannot create a better experience of yourself unless you have woken up to a certain degree. It is only a better experience of yourself will only come through truth, through abiding in presence, in the reality that is immediate and raw, and not through the filter of the egoic mind. That is what is creating your paradise, your heaven on earth. And that will allow you in a different setting to truly harness that potential and savor it and embody it and live it as deeply, enjoy it as deeply as you can. And it is not you are not consuming it. You are creating that experience. It comes out of you. And that is why you already need to be running those currents and that capacity of soul awareness within you in order to create a moment where you have the capacity to enjoy your surroundings without the filter of duality. Because it is always the self that is being run through the image where there is a filter of duality that undermines the capacity to experience the moment so fully like we do in a lucid dream. Where in a lucid dream it has shown you many times that all it takes is being awake in order to be like, feel so alive and so full of like a child, full of wonder and joy of this very moment, and it actually is regardless and independent from the setting that you're in because you are fully awake and there is no fear, and there is no separation from the dream anymore. So there is just excitement of awareness. There's just excitement of being, of being. Yeah, like, oh, this is so cool. Oh my God, I love this. And it's like every detail you're like you would love to just zoom into every little pixel of your setting. And because everything is so rich in everything, in its connectedness to all, in its individual story, in its unique um, presence. And if it is not a living being, then it is like, ooh, who created this? How did this get here? And everything is so rich and full. There is no shallowness or boredom. And there is no pain because there's no duality. Some presence is here. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Thank you for blessing us, blessing this space. So there is a light presence that just came, and it is blessing us, blessing this space. It is that this space that we open through resonating in truth, being present in truth, is like a portal for light beings, for more consciousness to come through. Yeah, very peaceful energies are running now down into the belly, through the crown. It's like the belly is a pond or a well, very deep pond, very deep, peaceful pond in a beautiful jungle grove. Sunlight trickling through the leaves of the trees. Dragonflies, lotus flowers, and lots of nature spirits. It's just full. They're having a ball. Mm. Yes, so see, this is also imagination, but this is not imagination that will bring us into duality. This is because we're not experiencing this through the egoic mind. Exactly. This is in the now, in the flow that these images come through. And that is different from a daydream that comes from the notion, the feeling, the consciousness that this moment, I want to get out of this moment. I don't like being in this moment, or it's boring, or whatever. And I'm seeking my salvation. I'm seeking a better moment in a different setting in the future. And then I project myself into that setting, and then I imagine myself in that setting. And that is splitting my energy off from my soul. That is again feeding into that program, into the egoic program of through the character, yes, through the image. So that is the difference. Well, you're welcome to stay. Yes, you're welcome to stay. Thank you for coming. Darnaya Sturia Turia Turia Nahayahi Taranuya Katanua Tayoyi Sanauru Ekataishenoru Huta Maye Sanurieta Yahoe na Narahoe na Narahoe Suriane Suriane Saravei Saravei na Yeshu na Maracanai na Yeshu. Wow. Oh. I don't know who it is, and I don't need to know. Thank you for coming. It's beautiful. And so it's a female presence, and she was putting her arm around my shoulder, sitting here on my right side. Yeah. And this is the presence in the field. So whoever is sharing in the field, it doesn't matter what time it is, what time in the now it is, in the field of the now. This presence is in the field. Her presence is in the field. Her hand is on my left shoulder. And she says, continue. She is here to support us in our awakening. And it is practicing. And it's not a practice though, but as we are cultivating, as we are being drawn back into our true selves, always when we feel like we've come back into, we're running, not back into, no, but we are, um, yeah, that attention is running in the currents of the egoic mind, and we're feeling the duality in the backdrop um, towards the backdrop of our true self, and that's becoming louder and more prevalent. We're becoming more aware of it in our being, the true currents. Ah, okay. Or fractalized vortices. Okay. Spinning in the true currents. Yes, the upspin and the downspin, the toroidal, the torus that is spinning in the organic currents. Yes, that is the torus, that is the form, that is this assumed form, that is the soul embodied. Exactly. And there is no more image between it. There is no more current running through an image that isn't then has an unnatural flow and feels like it's distorted, from the true organic flow of the pure soul embodiment. The everything that is left still asleep, still identified in the egoic mind, is feels like a distortion. Yeah, it is. Right. And when the unnatural current meets the organic flow that is in that rhythm of life, is flowing in the rhythm of life, beating to the heartbeat of the sun, of the earth. Yeah. When I say the sun, it is also the sun and the earth. Yes. Right. Corona. Karahatak no uri iatakshtan urhutakastiatori. Evra makatani tor lukutashtan urkukatataya tiatono. Debra annukuria katano toshtaya stiatoru. Jevri ikti ivi naarla hatak yatori. Yashatori atak naari atatori. Sabra ivi na urlu atak yatanu ukta ishatanu uriatakaru. Ushnak yataru. Borlach yatatu. Yeah, it's that finding that balance until we can fully operate. Because the thing is, we still need to. We're still operating. We're still operating in a world, in an interface system, because we're still operating. Yeah. For example, let's go back to the like planning a party or planning a trip. In your case now, planning a trip. Lots of interaction with the system on the traveling part of it. Yeah, okay, so that's what makes you anxious. Now, that means, and this is what we want to point out to you, that there is a challenge ahead. And the egoic mind is going to take that challenge and just use it in order to create more duality, in order to run more anxiety, in order to make you, it doesn't do anything. It's just how the program is working, okay? There is no being that is, it's just a program. And this is how it then you are experiencing it, that it creates more and more anxiety, because it's going to point that is anxious out to you, because it is in the process, its program is in the task of splitting your energy. That's what it does. It splits your energy off. So it magnifies that there's something, everything that there is to be afraid of. Like, oh, this is so stressful, so many people and loud noises and lots of EMFs. That's always the thing, the lots of EMFs. What if this and what if that? And so it constantly holds you like in a suspended imagination of how stressful this is going to be. And as you're doing that, you are creating that because you're pouring your energy into it. This is the conditioning of it. This is the habit of how that works when our currents are running through the egoic mind. That is how we are actually creating that experience, or drawing it to us, or yes, co-creating it. But it's not really the co is the true creator, of course, is the soul, because it's the soul's energy running through the egoic mind. And even if we were to do that, create it by constantly repeating in our minds what we don't want to experience, because we're already worried, afraid, stressed about the stress that is coming in the future. Okay, so this is like a general structure of it. It is also in the soul is just watching it. And how do we become aware of the mechanism? we we experience the mechanism. And the experience of it becomes more and more and more suffering to an unraveling ego. And the unraveling of the egoic mind and the awakening into our true self makes our tolerance for suffering smaller. Because it is only the egoic mind that is tolerating the suffering, even though it hates it. But that is the self-perpetuation of it. That is its own program, is creating suffering and hating the suffering, and suffering the suffering. Creating the duality, living through the dual image of oneself, and suffering that duality, that split from our true self. And it doesn't see, it will always, oh, the way out, it will always have another solution that is just another problem. that is creating more that is creating more suffering, because it's just creating more of a solution in the future, in a different situation. Imagining, okay, if I had, for example, a car. Oh, okay, so then I'm imagining myself in a car, but I don't have a car. So it gives me that feeling of, oh, I wish I had a car, for example. And it creates more energy projected into an image. So instead of, the solution is always bringing the energy back into the presence of your being, here now. The solution is always here now only. It will create more split, more duality. That's all it is. So the solution is never, ever coming from the egoic mind. That doesn't mean that there are not very practical solutions often. We are speaking now of an unraveling, also, egoic mind. And we are speaking of not, these practical, if there is a practical solution, for example, to soften the blow of whatever is challenging to the nervous system, of still having to operate within a on a stage, when we come into the interfacing of where the inverted matrix is still in place, and where there are still challenges in place to the body, in that defractalized, inverted system, a system that actually, has grown its architecture in a way that it squeezes the aura and undermines, it squeezes the aura, puts a lot of stress on the immune system, on the nervous system, and on the body, on the biology in general. Yes, so there are, of course, also practical solutions to that. But the practical solutions for you, they will not come through the egoic mind. That will be the true solution. They can only come from this presence here, and then as through this presence, which is coming completely back into the trust. Yes, into trust, into trusting what is. And that also means everything. It means everything. It means also trusting when we will be interfacing in a much more intensive way with these inverted structures, and with a challenge to the biology. It means completely coming back, and that you can only do that here now, into trusting your journey and everything that you will meet. And if there is anything that will serve your presence, and will serve your nervous system, your body, your biology, your fractality, stepping into a highly defractalizing field that will make itself known to you, that will show up to you as an intuition, and that will be available to you. So it is not making a problem out of that again, that's again the egoic mind, and that will not be a true solution. So you can already see where we are going with this, because has also turned into a session. You feel that when you step into these high intensity fields of defractalization, of inverted flow, that you will lose your connection, and that you will, days afterwards, have to pick up the pieces, and that it will bring a lot of suffering to you. This is what the egoic mind is. That's the program. That is the movie. It is playing because that was your experience of the past, and it is still lodged in your cells. So now we make contact with all of those cells, memories, all of those memories where we have suffered during times of intense stepping into that structure, during times of travel. Travel with public transportation, yes, not in your own vehicle. So we now make contact with that stress, with all those, within every single cell, with those parts of us, fractals of us, that have become in that time defractalized, that are still holding the charge from those times in the past. Darlahna kyutori ashtango kutashnikut orlikia tashtori jevru ukatakataya shtatoru unai bukuta orlakata shtakoara dayatori makana ayaburu kota dai 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 ura kata da 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 yo ikota da 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 yo do 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 Chiuruhurla hata ashtano kutu ushata ktaya tiado Northashatonu ukaye arla atano ur ikiatano urla jevra amma aktaye hiataye shti no urla arakana arsha takya tustunu dorlia tana katori iataya tia ta 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 Evra am aya shiata no 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 Yes, it is becoming again a ascending toroidal field. From a descending toroidal field in the holding of the charge of that stress, because it was still locked in that mindset that this is how it has to be, that this is how it is, and that you are necessarily stepping into another version of that, a repetition of that kind of stress. So it is holding you, it has been holding you hostage to the past, because those fractals of you within the cells, that charge, they were running in the currents, in the sound, in the frequency bandwidth of the egoic mind, of the inverted mind, and the split off from soul mind. In that image of suffering, in that image of yourself from the past. Now we liberated all of it. We opened that up, that charge, and we liberated that charge, and we're still doing that. That is in the process now, to liberate that charge. And what that brings forth is that we now realize it doesn't have to be that way, because we have enough wherewithal, presence, knowing. We have awakened enough of ourselves, because we are here now. This is the presence. You are taking this with you on the journey, and there is not anymore the worry projected into the future, coming from the past memory, that you will not be able to have this presence and run this harmonic energy within the field of this heightened, interfacing of the inverted structures, that challenging of the biology. So when your biology is challenged, when your aura is squeezed, that you will not be able, that you just have to suffer, and you will not be able to have this presence. Okay, so let's go into that. That is, of course, projecting a fear into the future, and that is you running yourself through the egoic mind. Now know that it is the cultivation of this presence here and now. It's the only time you can ever do it. To be even able to imagine that you may have, that there is an opportunity, that there is a possibility of having a totally different, or even a slightly different, but actually a totally different experience. And that it all depends on where you are at now. Yeah, wink, wink. Where you are at now. And you can take this now with you everywhere you go. Everywhere you go. And in fact, all the challenges that are thrown against your biology, make it all the more the call to be present in your soul. Make that call all the more louder. So you could be facing, instead of a day of stress, a day of unprecedented presence and meditative mind that will shift completely whatever is left of the fear of travel within you, that is, whatever is left of charge from past stressful traveling situations in public transport, and even just interfacing in these high stress defractalizing fields. But if your fractal is strong, because you are running the currents of the natural currents of your soul, you're running your light. You are so cultivated and established and awakened into your light body that you can hold it. And if you notice that you can't hold it, the second you notice that you are leaving, that stress is coming up, it is your call to be present. And it will actually be an incredible transformational, empowering experience to experience yourself in that situation in a different way from your past, and in a way where you can actually experience how through your own presence in your heart, through your sourcing from your well, you are through your falling into yourself and holding your attention focused within, in your heart, in your being, in your soul. Always coming back to it, always coming back to it. And it is the suffering that will call you back to it, because that's where the relief is. You will be amazed and empowered to see what is possible. How your fractal can remain in the face of, amidst a defractalizing field. But when your fractal is strong to a certain degree, what happens is it switches over from the field taking you over and defractalizing your biology, creating charge and stress. It flips into that you now have influence. Your fractal is so strong that it will influence the field and refractalize the field around you to a certain degree. What is important is that you will anyways, you will only get as far as is possible for you. It's not about refractalizing the whole airport or the whole train station or the whole world. It's not about that. It's just about you coming into your well-being, and it's about you not going into stress. And it is about healing that program, because when you are holding this presence, your fractal is strong and you are not being influenced by the defractalizing field, but the opposite begins to happen, that you influence the field. Because why? Because the truth is infinitely more powerful than the illusion. Yeah. Infinitely more powerful. The light, infinitely more powerful. The unity consciousness, in the presence, infinitely more powerful than any technology can undermine. Any defractalizing field technology, physical stage, physical setting can have an effect on. But we need to, of course, have that experience, to experience it for ourselves, to be empowered, to also be able to get that, not just believe it mentally, but to actually experience that. And this is the opportunity you will have on these occasions when you will be in flux, traveling, and in these interfaces. Yeah, we don't want you to be looking forward to it. We want you to always come back into the present moment here now and come back into trust. When you are finding yourself projecting worry about it into the future. Because now you know, is that what you want to create? No, that's the past. And the potential is all yours. It's all here. It is all in your choice now, and you can feel that now as you have come back into this presence, as you have resourced yourself. You know that it is completely in your hands to create a different experience, a lighter experience, traveling much lighter, and even with the potential of having a golden experience during that time that you otherwise would just like to, okay, shut your eyes and go through it because it's just so difficult. It's not something you can enjoy. But hold on for a moment. Holy moly. There is a potential, there is a golden nugget in there of potential that you might actually enjoy it. You know why? Because you might actually, through the challenge that is brought towards you, hear the call to go within so strong that you will source yourself so strong that you will experience yourself in your fractality, in your sourcedness, in your presence, and you will experience how the surroundings are irrelevant to enjoy yourself, because yourself is the only thing that is true here. Yourself is experiencing the surroundings without a dual filter, without a dual program, without a separation program. And that allows you to actually experience yourself as one with the surroundings, which has an effect on the surroundings. So we don't even need to reach that high. We're just saying that is a potential always in the field. But we don't even have to go there in order to actually have a pleasant and peaceful transition traveling experience. That will also aid to discharge and release all the remaining charge and fear and anxiety that is there from the past, from traveling. And transform your consciousness around it, because it releases the anxiety about it and releases the stress out of the body that you were holding. Stepping now into oh, what an opportunity. It becomes part of the fun part of why you are choosing to go on this journey and put your body into a different place in the first place. It becomes not the drudgery you have to step through in order to get to the good part. It becomes part of the joyous part of the garden that you wish to step into, a different garden, a different setting. Yeah, there you go. That is your confirmation. That is your confirmation. I want you to feel that in your body right now. So life is not a task. Even the transition into the sweet spot and even the preparation of the sweet spot can be being in the sweet spot, coming from being in the sweet spot. That is presence. When you are coming from this presence, there is no anxiety, there is no confusion, there is no pressure, because there is no pressure to do anything, and there is no fear of doing something and maybe making mistakes. You can let it all go as well. You are simply, it is not, there is no one actually deciding, because the decision has already been made in the soul. You don't know what it is, it's just flowing naturally. You see what is in front of you, you see what is the next little step, just the next little step that wants to be taken, and you will receive the intuition. The guidance. And it is always that what just pops up in this through the sweet spot. It doesn't pop up as a sand in the machinery, as a worry. That's not intuition. That's then the egoic mind being triggered, the program being triggered. And if you don't catch that, and buy into it, then you're running the currents and your attention is back in through the filter of the running through the image, experiencing yourself through the image in duality. And that will always create more duality. That's all it can do. But we are not in the business anymore of creating duality, because that's not the timeline we're on. That's not our where we're at. We're in the business of, or what is the process, in the process of unraveling. And that is why, and this is a topic for another video, but that is why there is so much suffering.